later episode of today's Grey Market Blast with myself and the amazing Angie Setzer. Combination of a couple of things that popped up, so we had to delay it, and also my microphone is absolutely ballsed up, so apologies if the sound is a bit crappy on my end. But as usual, the awesome Angie will be providing a rapid roundup of the latest pricing flows and market moving news in agricultural markets. But before she does, I will get the legals out of the way. So as usual, nothing discussed in this space and session constitute trading or investment advice or infers any kind of endorsement by PIQ or indeed myself, Ryan Paisley, and of course, Angie Setzer. Angie, how are you, my love?
I am super. Did you just say your microphone's all ballsed up?
Ballsed up, yeah.
I'm loving this slang that I'm learning being
Do you
your
know what?
friend
Every
now.
day's a school day with you, isn't it?
It really
On our
is.
little
Like you
on our
the other
conversations we have away from Twitter, every day you're like, hang on, I've just got to go Google that word you've just
it's
used.
just it. You had a bit of a mare yesterday, and I was like,
Yeah,
that
yeah, I
sounds
did.
terrible.
There we go.
So yeah, I'm learning here. I'm learning. As long as I don't, breakfast in a shovel or whatever, like it's every day is a new adventure and I love it.
Exactly that.
So
It's,
thanks.
I'm
Yeah.
just, I'm full of culture.
Right? Hey, thanks for starting late. Yeah, nothing messes up your day more than thinking you're supposed to be somewhere at 10 and having them call you at 8:55 asking where you are. So we're good. I'm all is well. We're all taken care of. Not anything bad. It was just a quick in and out and on my way, but definitely messed up the time here. So we had to start a little late today. Just what are we paying attention to? What do we got going on? The market's up again. Corn is up 4 cents across the board. We got beans up 5-6 cents here in the old crop. New crops up about 3. Wheat is up 8 to start our day. Kansas City's up a little bit. And so, we're starting with some progress. I'm going to call it progress in the China
Yeah, go for it. Go for it.
US, and so basically what you saw, and some folks are saying it's a pretty abrupt shift to have China replace the person responsible for trade negotiations. Our friend Wang, the former guy in charge of trade negotiations, was said to be quite hawkish, really didn't care. You know what I mean? Like, was kind of like, screw the US. We don't need him. Like he was referred to as a bulldog by folks. And so that was kind of part of why we had this, maybe a stubborn showdown going on or something like that. And so Beijing went ahead and brought in Lee. I can't say his last name. I'm going to sound terrible. And
Do you know
so,
what? I'm glad you said, 'cause I kind of attempted it on this morning's morning blast with myself and Mr. Michael Brown.
yeah,
And I just kind of like, I started and I was like, I'm not even going to
I
attempt
don't
this.
even want to because someone's going to accuse me of being a terrible human if I try. So
Yeah,
it's just, we'll
yeah,
call
yeah,
him
exactly.
Mr. Lee. And he's part of the negotiating team. He was part of the negotiating team during the first Trump term. And so I think that's kind of a big deal simply because you have Jameson Greer, who was also part of the Trump team. That first term, he was part of who had put together
Yeah.
phase one with our friend Mr. Lee here, potentially, or at least he was part of it. And on top of that, you saw China outline what it's calling necessary steps, to kind of work towards a conversation. So we've went from absolutely no conversation, just the ratcheting up of different tit for tats, pokes in the eye, those types of things. And now China's like, listen, okay, we want to fix this. We don't want to have this be long drawn out. We've said all along that we want to have a dialogue. We're open to dialogue, all of these things. But we really, in order to get started with a trade agreement, first off, we need to know who we're talking to.
Yeah.
Like, who's
Well,
the person?
I think it's a very good point because,
Yes.
yes, there's a lot of like kind of sometimes seemingly quite aggressive headlines
Mm-hmm.
and like quotes, but I think it's important to remember at the end of the day, both parties do want to come to a solution.
Yes, yes. And I think this is the biggest move towards that so far that we've seen. Now, obviously, it's not 24 hours. We're going to be singing Kumbaya with one another by any means. But, we are looking, they want the Trump administration basically to come out with a more solid plan. Like they just want a position. They want a more solid, straightforward position from the Trump administration. What is it that you're wanting? What from us? Yada, yada, yada. They want more respect. They're, didn't come out and say it out loud, but they're really not pleased by Vice President Vance's Chinese peasants comments made recently. So let's hopefully not put Vance in charge of negotiation. Maybe might not be the greatest move. But they also want to talk
Well,
about sanctions and
quickly,
Taiwan. Yeah, go
quickly,
ahead.
speaking of Vance, how do you say it? Is it Vance or
I say
Vance?
Vance, but I'm a
Vance.
redneck from
That'll do
Central
me.
Michigan.
But one thing to note, I did see a headline just now that him and Vance and his family are going to Italy and then India
Ooh, okay,
to talk about
nice.
trade. And we do know that Italy, because of Maloney's connection as well.
Yep, she's coming in.
And
Yeah.
India and the UK are very high up on the list of people to be sorted out first. So interesting to see what headlines we get from that, especially with the India side, because we've already seen rumours that they'll be looking to buy ethane, and I think they're removing the tariffs on ethane and LNG. I think there was a headline
Yes.
this morning about that.
Yeah, they're talking about an increase in energy, and in the White House keeps saying their push is food imports, and that they may have some issues with that. You're seeing some protests out of India's farmers on low wheat prices and some of these other things, and so that's probably a little bit of timing. The timing is never coincidence, right? And so you are
No,
getting ready
no,
to have
exactly.
these conversations, and in part of that, the U.S. has been kind of like, hey, that 40% import tax that you have on food imports, you should probably look at rolling that back. And they very well may in corn. You've seen such massive jumps in ethanol production and some of these other things. They really don't have the corn needed to the capacity to produce even the corn needed to meet some of what they're looking at doing for demand. So it'll be interesting to see. And yeah, we're going to be watching those. We've got Japan in town today. That's one of the things that we'll be paying attention to. President Trump said he is going to be sitting in on that meeting, which is interesting. Kind of like the boss is showing up
Yeah.
to make sure that you're doing it right. And it said that basically on the docket, he wants a conversation about U.S. military support for Japan, as well as trade fairness. You had mentioned Italy's prime minister. She's coming into town on Thursday. There's some talk or some worry amongst the France. Some officials from France are like, she's just
There's
going to
always a bit of
go.
worry about the French.
Yeah, we're always worried about that. I think they're still upset about the Freedom Fry thing from
Yeah,
2001, maybe.
right.
But yeah. So the French are kind of like, she can't go. She has way too many interests in the U.S. Like she's going to give up the EU's stance, yada yada. And everyone's like, just let her. The European Commission's like, she can handle it, which I'm pretty sure
But
she
also,
can.
look, at the end of the day, look, use your best people for the job, right? And we already
Yes,
know that she's got a good relationship with Musk and Trump. So
great
I think
relationship. Yeah.
I think it's more a case of I think people like France and Germany, or countries like France and Germany, especially the policymakers there, I should say, rather than just casting everyone in Paris
Right.
into the basket. But there's a lot of jealousy involved, right?
Yeah.
Especially in the EU as well. If we look back, it wasn't that long ago when we had the Euro crisis, when it was basically like the pigs,
Yes.
Portugal, Italy, Ireland, Greece, and Spain. They were kind of seen as the people dragging the EU down, and now like how the tables have turned. Like Italy's now one of the outperforming economies, and
Yes.
they seem to have their head screwed on. They've also got a functioning government, which really France and Germany don't have at the
Right.
moment.
Yeah, they're kind of sad about.
So there's definitely a bit of animosity between what was the old guard and potentially the new guard as well, because you've got Portugal and Spain are also kind of re-emerging, which is nice.
Which is interesting too in saying that, because Portugal and Spain have both been in for flash corn purchases over the last week.
Oh, there you go.
So
It's almost like we
yeah,
planned it.
look at that. We didn't. We don't have
No,
that
we didn't.
capacity mentally to do
No.
that. Just so you know, right? No. Planning ahead is not our strongest suits. But yeah, so that'll be the thing that we're watching, that we're paying attention to. Lots of chatter. The White House said yesterday there's 15 deals that they're very close to or that are being considered. That's what they're going to be watching. And then Treasury Secretary Bessent's basically in charge of a lot of these negotiations. And that makes me feel better. If they said Lutnick or Navarro, I'd be not packing my bags,
Right.
but, I'd be buying a lot of extra things at this point in time. If Lutnick and Navarro were in charge, I'd be covering my needs of goods going forward. Other thing that is super interesting, I think that we need to be paying attention to, and it's not necessarily directly involving grains, but I think it involves, or it will have an implication for money flow. More than anything. And that is the unintended consequences that we're seeing in the tech industry and some of these other industries with these tariffs that we had. Yesterday afternoon, you had NVIDIA disclose that they're facing upwards of $5.5 billion in licensing charges just to fulfill the orders and cover their current inventory on chips that they have. They have like this popular chip, H2O is what it's called, or something like that. I learned a lot about it this morning here because I was like, what the another thing. I'm so tired. But yeah, so they basically had the administration introduce these export controls, and part of those export controls are you have to pay a fee in order to export certain tech things in order to avoid, or to try to avoid the theft of intellectual property, and on the back of national security and all this, especially after we saw DeepSeek and folks, said that DeepSeek had stolen, stuff from U.S. tech companies, yada yada yada.
Yeah.
And so $5.5 billion in additional fees is a lot of money. It's not something
Yeah.
that you just find chilling in your couch. And NVIDIA's been
Well,
one
not
of the
my couch,
leading.
I'll give you a clue.
Especially, yeah, I don't even have a couch. We just have a love seat. We're poor. But no, I'm kidding. It's one of those things though where like it could really impact, especially with NVIDIA. And it's not my like this isn't my area of expertise by any means. But obviously, anyone that's been paying attention to equities, to the stock market, to what's been driving the strength in those markets, NVIDIA has been a golden child. AI has been the golden child. Like all of these things, semiconductor industry, like chips and all of that.
Yeah.
And so the semiconductor industry is also warning that they're looking at billions of dollars in additional costs. That's without even getting the sectoral tariffs. And so, there's just a lot of things that are happening that I think the administration is listening to. There seems to be a conversation that, Susan Wells, there, the chief of staff, is working. This is Wiles. It's Wiles, right? Is it Wells? Why? Anyway, I have
Yeah.
like I
Yeah.
have
That'll do. That'll do.
50-50 chance of getting it wrong in my head. My brain's taken the one that's wrong. So I don't know what to tell you. But anyway, the chief of staff is said to be talking to a lot of the businesses around the world and in the country especially. And so there's progress. I feel like the louder people scream, the quicker we get to an part of resolution. So that's where we're at. Just summary, some other loose ends that we had yesterday. We had NOPA Crush, which is the National Oilseed Processors Association. That's the industry group that represents like 96-97% of the country's crushers. Soybean crushers, we did see crush come in slightly below what traders were expecting. But Garrett Tway from Ag Trader Talk pointed out that it was actually probably the miss wasn't necessarily market structure or economics, probably more to do with the flooding and logistical headaches that we had in the southeast. But there is a lack of clarity in the biofuel industry that we could really use. Like we need the $1 a gallon biofuels credit or figure out 45Z, yada yada. We've had 2 months in a row now where crush has been below a year ago. And that is a result of these margins that are under pressure, this lack of clear, future in the business, and really trying to export soy oil, which soy oil stocks came in shockingly low or surprisingly low yesterday, which is why you saw soybean oil rally into the end of the day. Other than that, we'll get some ethanol production numbers out here pretty soon. We'll be watching to see if exports look good. And it'll just be all trade conversation all the time, probably for the day. But
All
the
trade
markets are
conversation all the time.
right. The markets are excited. We got corn up 5. We got wheat up 7. Beans are up 8. New highs for the move. Nope, not new highs for the move in corn. My bad. But on December corn, it's the highest we've been in a hot minute. So, yay.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, look, Angie, thank you so much as always. But also listeners, not only thank you as always, we always say thank you to you guys when we really do genuinely appreciate you. But kind of myself and Angie have got a little request as well. So basically the PIQ platform, if you haven't seen it, do check it out. We're trying to build like the news aggregation terminal for retail traders, investors, or people just in the market that don't want to pay out for a very expensive news terminal that we won't mention names of. But as a part of that, I do want to flesh out the agricultural side and maybe even make some default layouts. So you guys that don't have the time to set up your own platform can actually just go and click and have a dedicated agricultural hub for news and information for the markets. And on that, obviously, myself and Angie have been working away, with Twitter lists and stuff like that to get it all on there. But as a request, if you have any feeds or any preferred substacks that you read, or just news sites that specialize in agricultural markets, do let myself or Angie know via direct message or whatever, and we'll see if we can get that added to the platform, because we do want to make a very much a tailored experience for you guys trading agricultural markets and just involved in the agricultural space. So that's a little request from me. But
Yes.
Angie, thank you
I will
so much
tweet
as
it as
always. You're
well.
an absolute star. And yeah, we'll see everyone. Well, everyone will hear us tomorrow.
Yes. Looking forward to it. And have a good one, guys.